You're watching memorable entertainment television. MeTV Tri-State.
Broke the story on local homestead tax credit fiasco. Expose the Evansville Redevelopment Commission excessive spending habits.
Your community watchdog. CityCountyObserver.com is your online community newspaper dedicated to the progress of Evansville and Vanderburgh County. We're a nonpartisan publication providing insight into political issues and events that shape our community. We are a watchdog for you, the citizen. Check us out online, city-countyobserver.com. That's city-countyobserver.com.
Tri-State Voices, an open discussion with area leaders on issues affecting communities throughout the Tri-State. Now, here's your host, Mike Woods.
Good morning. Welcome to Tri-State Voices. Hi, I'm your host, Mike Woods. Tri-State Voices is jointly sponsored by the City County Observer, WTSN, and my office, Woods & Woods. Every week, Tri-State Voices interviews a community leader concerning issues that are important to all of us. Today, I'm honored to have Jan Stricklin. She's the school board candidate for District 1. She is the owner of Sell Yourself Realty. She has a bachelor's degree from the University of Evansville. Jan, I'm glad to have you here today.
Thank you, Mike.
And the first thing I'd like to ask you to do, and I'm going to advertise my ignorance a little bit here, is what does the school board do?
I'm glad you asked that. There are several things that the school board accomplishes, and that is having a vision and setting goals for the district, adopting policies, and setting the budget for the district as well. It hires and evaluates the superintendent of schools. It also sets the school calendar, adopts the curriculum, approves contracts for construction, and monitors academic achievements, plus being a voice for the community.
It seems to me that one of the most important things the school board does is hire the superintendent.
Yes.
Now, the superintendent, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, the superintendent's more in charge of the day-to-day functions, hiring, firing, that sort of thing, and the school board is more the long-term strategic planning. I mean, is that a fair description?
That's a fair description. I would say the superintendent is in charge of all the administrative duties that go along with running the schools, as far as the administrative staff, over the teachers, principals. That's his objective in working with the school board and their attorney on the other items.
Okay. Now, obviously, when people run for an office, there's usually some changes that they want to make. What changes are you interested in?
I would like to see us teach to the student as a whole and not teach to the test that we have been doing. I think that a couple things could be evaluated. For instance, having the same teacher from kindergarten through second grade. That way the teachers become familiar with the students, know what their accomplishments are, and what their strong suits and the weaknesses are, so we can instruct to those. Not every student learns the same.
You said to keep perhaps the same teacher K through 2, right?
Correct.
Explain to me why is that important?
It's important because of the large class sizes that we have. It's very difficult for teachers to learn all of their students' behaviors and be able to evaluate them in the short amount of time that they have. So this would allow more time for them to learn about that student and make recommendations.
You know, one of the things that's a continual problem, and I'm sure it's going to come up a bunch of times in this conversation, is you have so many students coming to school and their home life's kind of a mess. I mean, they're showing up, they're hungry, they're abused at home, all these different things. And it seems like unless a teacher really has some understanding about what's going on in the home life, they can't understand why the kid's acting that way at school.
That's true. We need to be cognizant of the fact that not every student has food before they come to school or has the proper clothing. That's why it's important, and it's a must that parents sign the paperwork needed for the free lunch program to help the students in that aspect. Also, the Evansville Area Council PTA has a clothing resource that not a lot of people are aware of called Hangers. I just attended a fundraiser for that institute, and they are accepting donations for clothes and hygiene products for students. And it's a great community resource that we maybe should use. It's centered in Washington Middle School. We can help as educators and parents ourselves to support as a community these fundraisers.
Okay, well, when you talked about the hangers program, let's go through that. That's for kids who are coming to school in inappropriate clothing?
That's for any child in need of clothing or hygiene products.
Okay, and how is that funded?
It's funded by donations, so the community helps to fund that program and through the PTA.
Okay, and as I understand it, the kids are transported over to Washington School where all the clothes are kept.
Okay, and that's exactly true. They are kept there at the Washington Middle School, so that's where you would go.
Approximately how many kids per year take advantage of that program?
The latest statistics, the clothing source has been open for 19 days, and an average of 400 students have already been through the program.
Are they able to take care of all the kids in need, or is it having to turn kids away?
Well, they're not able to take care of all the need. That's why we need community support.
Okay. So you think it needs to be doubled, tripled, increased by 50%, or what's your?
I would say at least 50% increase would help our students, because that's a lot of students in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I know one of the dry cleaning companies here, they have that coats for kids there every year to provide coats, because a lot of kids, they get toward the winter time, they simply just don't have appropriate clothing.
That's correct.
The school, I know, furnishes a certain amount of free lunches and breakfast to children. Is that right?
They do provide that, but it's required that the parents fill out the proper paperwork in order for that to happen.
Okay, is that not being done?
That's what I am learning from my discussions with teachers and parents. Mainly the teachers are telling me that if they had all the forms filled out, we could feed more children.
So it's kind of ironic that the very parents that are neglectful of feeding their children are the same ones that are neglectful of filling out the forms?
That appears to be the situation.
Okay. Well, I mean, if a kid comes to school and they say they're hungry, shouldn't we just take them at their word? I can't imagine. I mean, why is somebody going to lie about that? If they're going to eat the food, then...
Well, because of the funding requirements, I would propose that we even have an additional funding to provide children with meals. So if the proper paperwork is not prepared, that doesn't deter anyone from receiving services.
Okay. Years ago, I was a prosecutor in juvenile court, and I was astounded at some of the things teachers would have to do to try to help kids. At that time, they didn't have the hangers program. And then we would see teachers literally bringing clothes to school and having the student change clothes at the school, put on the clean clothes the teacher brought, and at the end of the day, then the kid would change back to the clothes they brought home, because if the teachers would just give them the clothes would just kind of disappear, or when they came back to school, the clothes would be so filthy that they weren't fit to wear anyway. And that's the one thing I wonder about that hangers program. It's good to give them these clothes, and that would be a good thing for those kids that have an appropriate home. But if their home's a wreck and nasty, when they bring those clothes home, they're going to be kind of back in the same shape, aren't they?
It would appear so. That's why it's really important that the community support these clothing funds, because you can't really control what happens to them, the clothing after it's sent home with the students. So we need to be able to replenish those.
Yeah, there's even cases where when I was prosecutor, they'd find where the clothes went home, and unfortunately, parents had literally sold their own kids' clothes, you know, and it's always tough to think about we wish those problems were taken care of in the home, but if they're not taken care of in the home, then it looks like we really got a choice, try to put the kids in foster care, try to take care of it through the schools, or abandon the kids. But I don't think most people feel like abandoning the kids are correct. When I was a prosecutor, there was a terrible shortage of foster homes. It is really hard to place a 3rd or 4th grade kid. Once they get that old, they're really tough to place. It seems like in some of these kids, if we don't try to break that cycle of poverty through the schools, it's not going to get broke.
That's why it's critical, especially about 3rd grade, that we get parent support. Statistics show us that most kids, because of preschools and other academics early on before first grade. They do well until about the third grade. At that point, we really need parent support for these children to help with their homework and for them to succeed.
I've always been a big believer in that motto that you can either educate the kids today or you're going to end up incarcerating them tomorrow, and it's going to be a lot cheaper to educate the kids today. And it's like you said, if you reach out to them in the third grade, you've got a chance. If you wait till they're 19, 20 years old, the mold is kind of set. It's tough to do much with them then.
It's very important that we put energy and time into our kids today, especially the younger that they are. I firmly believe that if our children fail, then our community fails. We can only prosper as a community if our children are prospering. So just because your child's doing well doesn't mean that that child that's failing isn't equally as important.
Let's talk about teachers for a minute. Are the teachers' pay increases over the last few years, are they sufficient?
They are not sufficient. The last pay increase was 2% for teachers and ancillary workers, and with that small pay increase, their hours were increased, and also their deductible for medical insurance was greatly increased. So it really wasn't a very effective raise.
Are we losing good teachers because of lack of pay?
Teachers' morale, they're very discouraged at this point. I don't feel that they're getting the support that we need to give them.
Well, speaking of support, do we do enough to support teachers when they're having to deal with unruly kids?
Well, teachers wouldn't be in the position they're in if they didn't care, if they weren't concerned about the students and loved teaching. We are taking those things away from the teachers. We are dictating everything that they do. We have given them a full schedule for the day and high expectations, large classroom sizes, and these things need to change in order for our teachers to become effective.
You just said something about classroom sizes. You feel they're too large?
I do feel that they're too large. If you can look at kindergartners and have up to 32 children, average class sizes can be 29 or more. That is a large number for a student or even an assistant to take care of. And my belief is that if we have smaller class sizes, more manageable class sizes, then teachers will be able to really administer to every student, and that includes some children that might have problems, that they can give them more attention.
So kind of as I understand kind of comprehensively, you'd like to see a teachers teaching like K through 2 and also a smaller class size, so there's going to be a lot more individual interaction between the students and the teachers for a much longer period of time.
A longer period of time for those teachers to learn that child's strengths and weaknesses. If we don't have enough information, how can we teach to the child as a whole? If we just focus on the test, it doesn't tell us what that individual child needs in order to flourish.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago something about we teach too much to the test. You're talking about the I-STEP test.
That's correct.
Obviously, we need to measure kids' progress, but has the I-STEP test grown to the point that it just kind of dominates the educational process?
It is the focal point for all teachers at this point, because the pass-fail mentality of our schools now is becoming disruptive to the teaching process. It isn't allowing for the creativity that we need for our children to excel.
So you feel like teachers are forced to just think about, okay, how do we get them to pass the I-STEP test, do well in the I-STEP without getting a broad-based education?
That's correct. That's what I have seen from my interaction with parents and from the teachers in our school system.
Do we have enough counselors in our schools?
No, we do not. Because of all the cutbacks, I believe that counselors have become less important overall, but because of the issues that children are facing, the demands put on our children at a younger age to learn more and excel faster, I don't believe that we're giving them full support.
Yeah. Is there anything we can do to make it so that the kids are going to the schools closest to their own home?
We can do some things like stop busing children out of their neighborhoods and away from home, where it becomes difficult for parents to participate in extracurricular activities, get children to and from their school and become part of that school community.
Okay, well, why are they doing that busing?
It has been an effort to create equal opportunity for children in the education system, but the fact is, if we are focusing on every school, for every school in our system become the best, it shouldn't matter where that student is going to school at. We should have equal opportunity in all schools.
Okay. Computers, obviously, they dominate everybody's life. And in every job anymore, you have to have a computer background. And it pretty much doesn't matter what job you do. And I mean, in our office, if somebody doesn't know how to use computers, they're lost, they're done. Is the school system doing enough to teach kids how to use computers?
I think we could do more as far as teaching computers to our children. For me in particular, I have 6 grandchildren, and almost all of my grandchildren, who are, the oldest is 5, before they're even 2 years old, they're playing with iPads, tablets, they're on computers. They are learning computers at a very young age. We need to be carrying that over into our school system.
Okay, well, what could they do to teach kids more about computers in schools?
Allowing more hands-on experience would be a good start.
Okay. What about laptops for kids?
That would be, of course, a budget item that I think we should consider. I know my daughter, who's been in college, they were required to have laptops just to be in specific programs. So it's becoming more of a requirement in the higher levels of education.
It would seem to me that more and more homework assignments ought to be simply turned in by email. I mean, that's how all of us do everything. Even my own office, if I'm next to somebody in my own office, their office is right next to mine, they don't bring me a piece of paper. I mean, I'll communicate people right next to me by email, because I'll attach a document, send it to them, ask them to review it, they send it right back to me. But we don't walk around passing papers. You know, more and more offices, people hand you a piece of paper, you don't know what to do with it. Should the schools have more and more times where the kids are used to getting assignments from the teacher by email and responding back to the teacher in email?
That's definitely something in our higher levels that we need to be working on. At college level, they are doing that more and more. It's expected of the students to submit things by email. We have to remember that we still need a strong basis for our students in reading, writing, comprehension. They need that core education in order to progress to computers and be effective.
But it sure seems to me, though, if we're training kids right now so much on paper, how to use paper, and then we switch them over to computers, wouldn't it be better just teach them about computers at first? I mean, paper is antiquated.
It is antiquated, but I don't know if that's something you can integrate that, would be my belief. As far as it being totally computer, that's something that you would have to gradually work into.
Well, you know, you look at kids at a really, really young age, they're on Facebook, everything else. I mean, they're used to computers, and that age, like you said with your grandkids, it's moving back younger and younger. Computers are becoming more and more simple all the time. So.
And that's definitely something to look at. I mean, there are games and educational games on computers now that children can learn from, and those could definitely be integrated into our system.
One thing I really like about computers is you can teach people how to teach themselves. Most of your professional schools, they try to teach you some things, but mostly what they try to teach you is how you can teach yourself, because as soon as you're out of school, your knowledge starts becoming antiquated right away. And it seems to me that's more and more how we're going to have to start teaching our kids. Rather than teach them things, we're going to have to teach them how to teach themselves, because that interaction with the computers is going to grow. Look how much it's changed in the last 20 or 30 years. That's not going to slow down.
You're right. As far as my experience, when I attended University of Evansville, the classes were really focusing around critical thinking. Classes are in higher levels are trying to teach you how to think, how to research, how to think for yourselves. And that's definitely something that we want for our children as well.
Let me ask you about the voucher program. As I understand it, with the voucher program, a student can take a certain amount of money and take it over to a private school, right?
That's correct.
When you boil down to the simplest thing. And so that amount of money obviously is taken out of the public school system and sent to some private school. Is that right?
That's correct. The voucher system can be good as far as giving some diversity for children if they want to go to a parochial school or a charter school. But the cruxus is that that money is being taken away from the public school system. And that's creating an issue for our budget, for the teachers, for public learning.
As I've read about the voucher program, when they take that money out of the public school system, I'm not sure that they came up with a way to replace that money, have they?
No, they have not at this point. That's why it's so critical that we not take more money out of the budget and we keep it in the school system, because we do need to be more effective with our students and we need to pay our teachers a living wage.
Are the private schools cherry-picking students that are the least expensive to educate? And let me be a little clear what I'm talking about. Students that have problems, special ed students, those kind, they tend to need a higher student-teacher ratio than other students. They're expensive, to be blunt about it. They're really expensive. Is the voucher program kind of unfair to the public schools because the private schools are allowed to go in there and cherry pick who they want?
It's definitely a problem with the budget. We need those resources to stay in the public schools. We need those resources for smaller class sizes to allow us to hire assistants at a competitive wage.
Okay. When you compare some of the statistics of the private schools, and that's one of the things that they've talked about how good the voucher program is, when they look at the statistics of the private school versus the statistics of the public school, are those statistics really fair? I mean, are you comparing the same thing? Because again, the private school seems like they get to cherry pick the students. Well, if you get to cherry pick the students, probably a lot of your statistics are going to be better.
Well, and you also have to look at the fact that with a private school, if they are utilizing smaller classroom sizes, that gives them an advantage from the get-go versus what the public schools are offering.
Okay. Do you think that teachers are comfortable coming forward with complaints?
I believe that teachers would like to focus on teaching. The way our system is set up right now, we're really not allowing them to do what they've been educated to do, what their drive is, and what their specialties are. So we need to go back to that.
Okay. So it seems like most teachers, they don't go in for the money. They're not paid tremendous amounts, to put it mildly. They're not going to become famous. It seems like most of them, at some level, they've got to have a passion for teaching. I mean, there's not much else reason you're going to be in there.
That's correct. The teachers I've talked to have a very strong passion for teaching and for helping children, and we need to support them in that aspect.
Should the teachers, to be blunt about it, should they be more in charge of the school corporation?
I think
have a greater voice.
They should have a larger voice in what's going on with the school corporation, because they are on the front lines. They're with our children every day, and they know too well what's going on and what the students' needs are.
There's a dual credit program in the Evansville-Vandenberg schools system. Will you explain to me what that program is?
That program allows students to get college credit for courses that they take in high school, junior, senior high. And for me, that is very critical. You should never cap what type of education children can get. As a non-traditional student myself, I know the importance of education and the fact that if you want to pursue a specific degree or you have a level of interest in a certain subject, you should be able to pursue that. You shouldn't be handicapped.
It seems like if students in high school can get credit for these courses when they go to college, it's going to save the parents a ton of money. It's going to get the kid through college faster. But also, it seems like you're going to make especially the junior and seniors, their last couple years in high school like that, they're going to be more motivated if they're taking classes in high school and realize they're basically going to have to retake the same or closely the same course in college. There's not much motivation to work very hard in high school.
We could work harder in high school by allowing those dual credits, and the students would also benefit from that as well.
There's a whole lot of your basic core things. A lot of things that when I've started college or your freshman year, you're taking math and history and general ed requirements, kind of a thing like that. And it seems like most of the freshman year of college, it's a repetition of things that you had to do in high school.
This is true, and that's why if we can get the dual credit, students wouldn't have to retake classes over again in college, and it also prepares them better to test out of subjects that they can do that and save their parents money.
What is Core 40?
Core 40 are the classes that are required to be accomplished at the state level. There are basic requirements in school right now.
And then there's a bill, House Bill 1213.
Yes.
What's that bill?
That bill is a proposed bill that's gearing us towards technical learning. It would be a separate group of classes for someone that's not college bound to be, maybe they want to learn technical skills. That allows them to take classes to do technical skills versus the college-bound courses.
There's been several of our guests over the past few weeks have talked about that, and they mentioned about the number of technical jobs that are going begging right now, while you have so many people coming out of college with the general educational requirements that they can't find jobs. I mean, we're getting more and more in a society where people are educated, but they can't fix stuff.
I think we need to address that because Southern Indiana, we need the jobs. We need people trained to do these jobs in manufacturing facilities and production, and that's what employers are begging for.
Jan, I hate to say it, we're just about out of time. I know there's a number of issues that you wanted to talk about, but unfortunately about out of time. Why don't you just take just about a minute and just tell our viewers why you'd like to be on the school board and why you'd be the best person to be on the school board.
Well, first I'd like to thank you, Mike, for allowing me to be here today to get my name out, and I would appreciate your vote in November. I am running in District 1. It is a county-wide election. I feel like I would be the best candidate because I will bring fresh ideas to the school board. I have experience in education, from my education as a non-traditional student. I'm a mother, a grandmother, and I believe that I would have input into the school system that would be new and fresh for the coming election and establish new goals for the school board.
Janet, really appreciate you being here. I've enjoyed talking to you. I wish you the very best of luck. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week. We hope to have Chris Kiefer, the current president of the Evansville-Vandenberg School Corporation School Board, on there. Thank you very much.
Broke the story on local homestead tax credit fiasco. Expose the Evansville Redevelopment Commission excessive spending habits.
Your community watchdog. CityCountyObserver.com is your online community newspaper dedicated to the progress of Evansville and Vandenberg County. We're a nonpartisan publication providing insight into political issues and events that shape our community. We are a watchdog for you, the citizen. Check us out online, city-countyobserver.com. That's city-countyobserver.com.
You're watching memorable entertainment television. Me TV Tri-State.